Hello. In this After Effects tutorial, we are going to try to recreate one of the fantastic animations that we can see in Logan Shippey's Reels. Here is an example of what we are going to learn. By the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it. But I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Okay, so let's start. The first thing I am going to do is import all the files, and I am going to put them in a folder that is going to be called Assets. I am going to create another one for the compositions, and with it selected, I am going to create the first one that is going to be called Main. 1080 by 1920. Vertical format at 30 frames and with 10 seconds of duration to spare. Now, with a right click, I am going to put a solid that I'm going to use for the background. I am going to make it 3000 by 3000 pixels. The color does not matter because we are going to put it now after a gradient. Well, in fact, I am going to put the effect called gradient ramp. Here's the handle. I'm going to put it in the center. It doesn't have to be perfect there, but if you want to adjust it perfectly, you put a value of 1500 here, which is half of the 3000 pixels that the solid measures. Okay? Here, from linear, I'm going to change to radial, and I'm also going to invert the colors. And here in white, I'm going to put a greenish color, quite dark. More or less around there. Now this solid, with Ctrl+D, we duplicate it, and we remove the gradient. We're going to put the effect called grid on it. Here, I'm going to change to width slider. I'm going to increase this value to 150, and I'm going to put the edge of the grid at 3 points. And now this layer. If the tracking mats don't appear, with F4 we unfold them, and we're going to put it in overlay mode. Okay, perfect. We have to convert them to 3D, and by activating two views, and with this viewer in left view, we are going to move them to the background to create the parallax effect. Press P, and we are going to set a value of 500. Again, with a right click, we are now going to create a shape layer that is going to be called Box 1. We also convert it to 3D, and we are going to add a rectangle and a fill. And here, in the rectangle options, we are going to deactivate this chain so that we can move these values separately. Here we are going to set 560. And in this one, 245. If we want, we can also round the vertices a little. I am going to set a value of 20. And now, the color of this rectangle, I am going to set it to almost white. Not completely, around there. Okay, and with the text tool, here everyone can write what they want. Just like in the example, I am going to put real. This font is called Helvetica in its bold variant. With Ctrl-Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point, and with Ctrl+Home, we center it there in view. We also convert it to 3D. And I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger. More or less around there, we duplicate it, and I'm going to put this copy up there. And here I'm going to write 3D. The color of this text, I'm going to put the same color as the box. Okay. These three layers that belong to the same scene, I'm going to paint them the same color. And now here, in the assets, we're going to put this one called flare. Although I'm going to do this effect later with Optical Flare, which is a paid plugin. But if you don't have it installed, I'm going to leave this flare already rendered so you don't have any problems. We convert it to 3D, and we're going to put this layer in add mode. And if we want it to be the same color as the background, we come here to Effects and Presets, and we put the one called Hue and Saturation. We activate the Colorize box, and we're going to set the saturation to around 70. Now here, by moving this value, we can set the color we want. I think that it looks pretty good with the background. Look at the flicker that flare makes. The truth is that it looks pretty cool. Well, I think it's a little yellow. It's perfect around there. As I said before, I'm going to do this effect with the Optical Flare plugin. Right-click, New, Solid. And this one is going to be called Flare. The size of the composition and the color doesn't matter. Now I'm going to go to Effects, Video Copilot, Optical Flare, and I'm going to go to the Options. All this here, I'm going to delete it by clicking on Clear All. We click Yes. And now I'm going to choose this glow and this one here, these two. I'm going to put some greenish tones in the color, more or less like those. Here, we also click OK. Now this flare, from on black, we're going to make it transparent. And with this handle, we're going to move it around here. To better see what we're doing, I'm going to leave this flare alone. I'm going to set the scale to 50. We're going to deploy it here in Flickr, and we're going to set the speed to 80 and the amount to 50. This is to create the flicker. Note that it looks exactly the same as the one I've rendered for you. Okay, so we've got it. We also have to convert it to 3D. And since it belongs to this first scene, we're going to paint it the same color. And we're going to move it down here. And this one that I'm not going to use anymore, I'm going to delete it. Okay, so now we can create the camera. Right-click, New, Camera, 35 millimeters, and 2 nodes, for example. Okay, again, right-click, New, Null Object. We also convert it to 3D, and we pair the camera to it. P key, and here in the second two, we're going to mark a keyframe. That's going to be the final position. And here at the beginning, we're going to zoom a little until all these elements occupy almost the entire width of the composition. We're going to put a value of 460 here, and we'll smooth this keyframe and give it an influence of 100%. We'll leave this one as it comes by default. So we have this animation. Okay, come on, let's continue. We'll go here in this last keyframe, we duplicate the null, U key, and we delete these. We mark another keyframe, and we link the previous null to the new one. This animation is going to start here at 120, so that before this one ends, the next one starts. And so the camera never stops. Now, from 120, we are going to move to 207, around there. As I always say, I put these values because after having done some tests, they are the ones that have worked best for me. Okay, here at this point, we are going to zoom in a little. I am going to put a value of 330. And at second 5, which is where this animation is going to end, right there, I am going to continue zooming. Here, I am going to put 445, and we are going to smooth out these two keyframes. We are going to go to the graphics editor to give this curve a little shape. Look, what I always do is I give this curve a very progressive finish so that it ends very slowly. But this time, what I want is for a bump to come from here. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to activate this continuous box. And now, with this magnet icon activated, because if we have it deactivated, notice we can't do it precisely. But if we have it activated, here we have this totally straight line. And what I want is for a little bump to come from here. And the camera stops abruptly, but without stopping. That when it gets here, it continues moving in a linear manner. And here at this point is where we are going to create the shaking effect. Come on, let's continue. All these layers, the cyan ones, these 3 we duplicate, and we are going to put them up here. I am also going to change their color since they belong to the second scene. And I am going to place myself right here at 120, which is where these layers are going to start. And here in the project panel, from this layer called calendar, I am going to create a new composition and I am going to put it in its folder. Now, here in the settings, I'm going to make it 1500 by 2000. We'll leave everything else as is. S key, and here we're going to set the scale to 35, and with right click, we're going to create a solid of the same color as this layer, okay? We'll move it underneath, and now here in the main composition, this one of the calendar, we're going to put it right there so that it starts at the same time as these. We'll also convert it to 3D and the color yellow. What happens is, I'm going to move this composition a little bit towards the background to create the parallax effect. Here on the Z-axis, I'm going to set a value of 200. Now this layer called ink, we're going to put it up here. And I'm going to set the color to green. I'm going to set it to start right here. R key, and I'm going to rotate it -90 degrees. I'm also going to convert it to 3D, but before creating the ink development transition, we're going to make some adjustments to these layers. For example, in this text, here I'm going to write ink, and I'm going to use the same color as this background. Now I'm going to paint this box in a fairly dark color, almost black. In this text here, I'm going to write transition. I'm going to use the same color as the rectangle layer, but I'm going to move this layer under here. And I'm going to make it a little smaller as well. From there, we position it well. There it is. Now we can activate the ink layer again. Now all of these, we have to make them develop with the animation of this ink. If the tracking mats don't appear, F4 and we'll unfold them. And now with the pick whip, we're going to parent them all to the ink layer. What happens is, that we have to invert the alpha matte and activate the luminance matte as well. There it is. Look, there we have our transition. Well, this looks spectacular. What happens is that we have a problem here. Look at this layer that says 3D, which belongs to the first scene. So that it can't be seen in this part, we're going to put an adjustment layer above this layer. Right-click, New Adjustment Layer. Look, that word has already disappeared. What this adjustment layer does is, as if we were saying that all these layers that are above are in a 3D space, and all those that are from the adjustment layer down are in a different 3D space, so they don't mix with each other. Now the scene works perfectly. Now here at this point, what we're going to do is create that kind of tremor. Right-click, New Adjustment Layer. And this one is going to be called Shake. We're going to put the transform effect on it. We're also going to put a controller on it, a slider control. And now here in transform, with the Alt key pressed, we're going to click on position, and we're going to write wiggle, and inside the parenthesis 15, and without leaving the expression, we're going to link the pick whip to the slider. So, now here, if we put, for example, a value of 20, look, we have that tremor there, but it lasts the whole time of the composition. And what I want is for this tremor to only occur here, in this part. So, for that, we have a clock here, to be able to animate and control that tremor. We're going to put ourselves here at 202, mark a keyframe, and put the value at 0. And 3 or 4 frames forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, there we're going to put it at 20. We're going to display the keyframes with the U key to see them. Now, 10 frames later, we're going to put it back to 0. We're going to do a preview to see how it looks. Okay, and this is also about playing with the timing until you find a result that you like. I'm going to cut this layer here and here. And maybe I'm going to move it a couple of frames to the left. Okay, I like it better there. Anyway, as I said, this is about trying until you find a result that you like. We're going to put another effect. Right-click, New Adjustment Layer. And this one is going to be called Posterize Time. And we're going to put that effect on it. The frame rate, instead of being at 24, we're going to put it at 15. This is also up to each person's taste. To tell the truth, there are certain animations that I really like how they look with posterize time. Okay, so this looks special. Right-click, New Adjustment Layer, and this one is going to be called Vignette. We're going to put that effect on it. Here, I'm going to set the amount to 135. Another effect that we can use, and that is very used in this type of reels, is the one called Prisma, which is also a paid plugin from Boris FX. The truth is that it works quite well and creates a very cool look. Look at what it does. It distorts the image here at the edges, and it also creates this chromatic aberration effect. This is how it looks without the effect, and this is how it looks with the effect. And the truth is that it looks great. Anyway, if you don't have this plugin installed, you can also use the one here in effect, Immersive Video, VR Chromatic Aberration, which can also achieve a similar result in terms of chromatic aberration. With Ctrl+A, we select all the layers, and we are going to activate Motion Blur. Well, these four don't need it, and neither do the nulls. And with this, we have the animation finished and working perfectly. If there is something you haven't understood, or if you got stuck in any step, leave me a comment and we'll fix it. And if you like the tutorial, leave me a good like so I know. See you in the next video.